Andre Cacciatore of Nesson.com, joined with Matt Perino of UFC.com. We're about to preview UFC Fight Night in Arizona this weekend. Great card. We're going to see Izzy Adesanya on the card. Matt, I know you're excited about that, but we're going to talk about the main event, a classic Dustin versus Justin battle, Gaethje versus Poirier. Huge fight in the lightweight division, because if you really think about how crowded this division is, whoever wins this is going to have a clearer shot to that eventual title match maybe next year. Whoever loses is going to really set themselves back. What do you see happening in this brawl between Poirier and Gaethje?
Well, a brawl it will likely be. I think it was Jimmy Smith that so fittingly put it, this could be the fight of the millennium. Yeah. I mean, these are two guys that go in and leave everything in the octagon, both very high-level strikers. I was looking at the numbers before I jumped on with you, and it's amazing. Dustin Poirier holds the highest strike differential among active lightweights. So he's going out there and putting a pace on his opponents, and they're struggling to meet that. But in this matchup, we're going to get a treat because Justin Gaethje is known for his volume, his pace, and he is going to meet Dustin Poirier in the middle of the octagon, and it's going to be who can drop the other first. And it could be like that fight against Michael Jackson. We could see a bunch of knockdowns in this fight, and a 5-round main event in Arizona, free on Fox. I mean, Christmas come early.
I have to agree with you with that one. Gaethje, here's the stat of the day. That's the total amount of strikes he's delivered and received in his 2 UFC fights. That's a lot of volume. That's a lot of action. We're going to see that from Gaethje. He's a knockout artist. He has more than a dozen knockouts in his career, and he was that big prospect heading into that Eddie Alvarez showdown a few months ago, and I was sold. I thought he was going to win that fight, and he lost that fight. So Poirier's not an easy opponent. I think it's going to be tough for him. I don't see him winning this one. I'm going to go with the more experienced guy, especially with Poirier, who has the advantage on the ground as well. I think he can try to maybe send this to the mat to use his experience there to finish off Gaethje. What do you think?
I think that if you go back and you look at, Dustin Poirier, the only setback he really suffered since moving up to 155 pounds was Michael Johnson, a guy that was able to meet him punch for punch. And the problem with Gaethje is you're really going to have to finish him like Eddie Alvarez was able to do last time out. And I think that Gaethje's coming off of a disappointment, a guy that never suffered a professional loss before. I'm more comfortable going with him in this fight. I'm a huge Dustin Poirier fan, and I think that I will not be surprised however this fight goes. But I think this is lining up nicely for Justin Gaethje. I think that these two guys very, very close to title contention. Khabib Nurmagomedov just fought. One of these guys could have stepped in if they didn't have a fight, and it ended up being Max Holloway, and then we all know what went on from there. But yeah. I like Gaethje in this fight. I think he's gonna have an answer for Dustin. I think I just like him. I just like him in this fight.
So what happens to the winner of this fight? Because it's a weird situation. Obviously you're gonna get Khabib and probably McGregor, guessing whatever happens with him and his whole case. But, you got Ferguson there, you got Eddie Alvarez. Do any of these guys get a rematch with Alvarez, or they go fight Ferguson or maybe Edson Barboza? What happens to the winner of this fight, do you think?
It's interesting, right? So I think there's two guys that pose the best matchup for Khabib. You look at Eddie Alvarez, I think right off the bat, because of his grappling ability, because of his big fight experience, a guy that's already kind of fought Conor, did that whole big fight thing. And whoever fights Khabib, it's going to be a big fight. Also, you got a guy out there who's competing in 2 weeks. Kevin Lee had a bit of a setback against Tony Ferguson, but he has a chance to go up against Edson Barboza in Atlantic City and maybe really cement himself as a potential title contender. He's talked a lot about Khabib. He said that he has the perfect game plan to thwart Khabib's wrestling, which the way that it looks, I don't know who's going to be able to do that, but Kevin Lee believes he can do it. And you look at these two guys, Gaethje lost to Alvarez. So you would think that puts Alvarez in a better position here going forward if it's not Conor. And Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez had that fight where it ended in a no contest. Dustin looked really good in that fight, but again, if Dustin's not able to take out Gaethje, you could see, I think, an Alvarez or Lee stepping into that spot.
I think this works out well for the entire lightweight division because you have all this time until McGregor may potentially return. Maybe let's say that November Madison Square Garden card. There's a lot of time from now until then for all of this these fighters, it's a huge cluster of very talented fighters. I think by the end of the year we'll have a clearer picture of who could get that title shot if McGregor isn't ready to fight.
Definitely, and I think the one thing that's going to be difficult for a lot of these lightweight contenders is Khabib said that he's not planning to come back until that New York card because he's going to go do Ramadan here coming up in the next month or so. So he'll be out of. He doesn't want to start a training camp until June or July. So you're looking at probably October, November before he comes back, which could be McGregor, but you know what? Until that contract signed, I mean, who knows what's next? It could be Alvarez, it could be Lee, could be Gaethje, Poirier. Like you said, it's a nice problem to have all these exciting options and a lot of interesting stylistic options. You look at Ali Quinta, he opened a lot of people's eyes in that matchup with Khabib, and I think a lot of people all of a sudden wondering, well, Dustin Poirier's stand-up and takedown defense could be an interesting matchup for Khabib. I read on Twitter, somebody said Justin Gaethje would be the kryptonite to Khabib's entire game plan in the way that he approaches the fight game. So, I mean, there's so many interesting things. Lightweight's one of the deepest divisions in the sport.
Yeah, I believe Alvarez called himself Khabib's kryptonite as well. So we'll see what happens. Matt, it's always good talking to you. UFC Fight Night in Arizona this Saturday night. For more UFC news, either go to NESN.com or UFC.com.